Alright guys, it's another day, and we've got the old Geo Tracker back in the shop here. I went to turn up the idle on it, because it's been idling low here lately. And whenever I reached in here and I was looking around, I saw that the cable going to the transmission was pinched under the intake here. And I reached in and went like this and tried to pull this up. And when I did, I pried down on the distributor with my hand and lost all spark, and the thing stopped running. So I'm going to try to diagnose that and figure out why. I think one of the wires may have broke internally, but I'm just going to try to figure that out. In order to get this thing in the garage, I used the old Ranger there and pulled it up from the house. And once I got it here, I had my daughter get in it, and I pushed her in with the four-wheeler, just shoving on the hitch. That's how I got it in here. So between what little information I could figure out in the book and this diagram that I found on a Suzuki forum online, when you unplug the distributor, because this is a 96 Geo Tracker, and previous ones had a separate coil from the distributor. This one's coil is built in, so it's got this plug. But what I need to figure out is if I've got voltage going to this. That's what I'm worried about. I think this wire might be broke. It's the one that said it should be positive. So I've got to turn on the key, and then I'll take the voltmeter here, and let's see. I don't know. Number 4 and number 7. Yeah, number 7 should be the positive, and number 4 should be the ground. That's what I got to check. So it says number 7 and number 4, and we have 12 volts. So on this thing it also says check between number 1 and number 2 for the same thing. Number 2 being the positive and number 1 being the negative. It says it should be and we've got 12 volts. Well, yeah, we've got a constant 12 volts there too. So next this thing says to pull the distributor cap off, and I've got to check the continuity on the coil itself. So I'm going to pull the cap off and I'll go from there. Alright, so on this diagram here it's saying check the continuity or the resistance in ohms between the number 1 and it'd actually be number 7 and number 6 on a distributor itself. And we're at 1.5 to 2, and it says that should be 0.07 to 0.09. I don't know. Some of this stuff confuses me. But there's what it says to do. There's where it says to check it. And my number 1 was off, but number 2 was fine. It was 15. So, alright, since nothing I've tried so far has worked, this next step, this is going to be a little bit of a cobbled up mess. But I take 2 AA batteries here, and I got to make sure I got 3 volts. Okay. So the next thing to check, it says, is the igniter circuit. And you got to set 2 AA batteries in sequence and to make 3 volts and hook them to terminal number 5, the negative side of it. And then positive side goes to the positive lead on the ohm meter for continuity. And you put it on number 4, and then number 6 negative side goes. And it said with the 3 volts applied to number 5, I should have continuity, and when they're not, I shouldn't. So I've got to check that next. Alright, so according to this thing that I'm looking at here, it's saying connect the positive side of my batteries to number 5. Then touch the positive side of this lead to number 4. Boy, this is going to be tough. and then this one to number 6. And I've got continuity. So out of everything that I've messed with so far, the only thing that hasn't checked out has been, and again, I don't know if I'm completely correct on how I did it or not, has been the resistance on the coil. It was supposed to be between 0.7 and 0.9, and I'm reading at 1.5. I don't know if that's bad. I don't know if I even checked it right. But that's the only thing that, out of everything I've tested, hasn't checked out on this thing. So, I don't know. I just don't know what to do right yet. So, for someone that really hates reading, I've been having to do a lot of it. So, on this thing over here where it told me that I was supposed to be at 0.7 and 0.9, whenever I come back over here to this book, this is a Chilton's manual, by the way, and that same illustration, everything's in perspective because it's 1.35 to 1.65. And I was reading at 1.5. So there's nothing wrong with the distributor then. So why don't I have spark? So I guess at this point I'm just going to go ahead and buy a distributor cap and rotor button. I mean, it's worth a try because everything's checking out with the distributor. It's saying it's fine. I'm having a hard time fathoming that me bumping that with my arm would cause me to lose all the spark. But I don't know. I guess I'm just going to buy one and try it. So I called up the old O'Reillys, and those guys over there are high because, and I mean literally, because they wanted $30 for a cap and another $25 for a rotor button. So it was going to be $50 for those. So I'm going to call around to a couple other places, see what I can come up with. So I ended up running to AutoZone and getting the stuff. They were about $10 cheaper, and they actually had the stuff in stock. Everywhere else had to order it. So Duralast parts it is. I'm going to go ahead and pop that stuff off there and change that out and pray that it does a miracle and fires this thing up. So as far as changing out this distributor cap, I'm just going to hold it up here, get the right direction, swap wires one by one, and then I'll pop it on there. So I'm not 100% sure, but whenever I pulled that off, I was checking everything out and looking. If you look real close, and this is under the rotor button, this is cracked. The crack does go clear through in a couple spots. I don't know if this could be causing my issue. I'm assuming it probably is. So, I don't know. I'm going to have to figure this one out because I don't know if you can buy this or if you have to buy the whole distributor. I'm almost willing to bet this is what's going on because if you look real close, it looks burnt right there. I'm seriously considering putting some silicone on this and slapping it together and seeing what happens here. So I just put a wee little thin layer of silicone down over those cracks and tried to pack it into the cracks pretty good. If this does actually fix this, even though I changed out the rotor cap and button, I'm going to chalk it up as this was my issue regardless, but we're going to find out. I'm going to reassemble all this and see if it starts. Alright, we got her put back together. It's a moment of truth. Let's hit the key and see what the hell happens. Well, I'm going to say that it was the cracks in that thing that caused my whole issue. I can almost bet you if I put the old stuff back in here, I guarantee you that's what caused my issues, the cracks. Because this thing just shut off. This is going to suck. I'm probably going to need a distributor. Because whenever I was in here pushing on this, like I said, prying, I heard a crack. And I'm guessing I got stuff shorting out in there because of that. Oh boy. Alright. Well, I'm going to figure something out. Hey everybody, I'm finally back on this. It's literally been 8 days since I've worked on this because I've been waiting on this distributor to get here. For some reason it got hung up with FedEx. It was in FedEx. It was in one spot for like 4 days. But we finally got it, and we're going to go ahead and get this changed out. So, I watched a video the other day from a guy named Highway 83 Suzuki, and he did a pretty good video on swapping this distributor out. It was on a 96 as well. But he showed how to pull the timing cover and line everything up and whatnot. And I read the Chilton's manual, and it says basically if you just mark everything in the exact spot that it's in, and then line this one up, and then go ahead and restab it, it should start and be everything be right where it needs to be. So that's probably what I'm going to try, because I really don't want to take that timing cover off there again and everything. And then if I have to later, I will. But for now, we're going to be pulling that. So this should be fairly simple, because my rotor button is lined up with the coil thing. And so basically whenever I pull that bolt out and pop this out, all I've got to do is make sure my rotor button is pretty well pointed at this coil thing here on the new one, and I should be able to slide this back together pretty simple and quick. So I'm going to go ahead and pop that up out of there. And just like that, that old distributor slides right up out of there. Now, I may try to get that housing off there, because that housing right there, I might try to take that off, because I do believe there's an O-ring on the back of that, and I think that's what's leaking oil back here, because I don't think that top one was. So I'm going to check into that, and I might do that real quick while I'm in here. So I got this housing off, and if you look, you can see this O-ring is just all dried out, and it was leaking pretty bad there. But if anybody does go to change one of these, just know now, you better be able to read Braille pretty well and see with your fingers, because you can't see. You can see this bolt a little bit and kind of peek through the other side of this one, but that one there, you can't see nothing. So I'm going to change that O-ring out and slap this back on, and then we'll get back to the distributor. Alright, so going back in with this, I always put a little grease on stuff to hold O-rings in, because this one just wants to fall right out. But you can see how that O-ring sticks up above that, and the other one was pushed down in there flat. So this will go in, and then I'll put the distributor back on. Alright, we got the housing back on there. We're ready for the distributor to go in. This will probably take me a time or two to get it right, but let's see here. That O-ring's tight, which is good. Alright, this distributor cap's got a little bit of a different rotor button, but that's about where that screw was in the other one, and it's pretty well just right past that coil. So that's about where we wanted. We got some adjustment here. We can play with it if we need to. I've got to find the bolt I dropped. I'm going to tighten this up. We'll switch the wires on the caps and see what happens. Alright, we got everything back in there. We left the distributor just a little bit loose in case we need to twist it and adjust it. But it's a moment of truth. We're going to try to see if it'll fire. Well, she's running. So I'm gonna chalk that up as a win. I wonder what that was. That ain't good. Well, I was going to chalk this up as a win, but I don't know if I will now or not. Started making a funny noise for a second. Almost sounded like something was rubbing, and then it shut off. And now this is, and it started doing, when you turn the key on, well, maybe now it ain't gonna do it. Oh, there it goes. The fuel pump keeps kicking on and off, and the needle's jumping like that. I have no idea what is going on here. I don't know what to do at this point. So after looking at and studying here for a minute, I don't know if I trust that cheap aftermarket distributor completely. So I may be I pulled that cap off that one, taking that out, sticking it on my old distributor, putting the old distributor back in, and seeing what happens here. So it's worth a try. I mean, what am I out? Time. So I'll probably end up having this thing all screwed up, but I mean, I'm not going to get nowhere just sitting here. So I spun that around till that rotor button is pointed right here at this corner of this, and that's what I'm going to go by whenever I stick the other one. So I am, yeah, I'm going to pull that one and put the other one in. So I'm not 100% sure, but I know I heard like some kind of a noise. It sounded like something was rubbing, and then it shut off. But I don't think I should be able to do that with the distributor. I can't do that on that one. So maybe something happened. I don't know. I'm going to, like I said, switch these parts over and pop this other one back in here. Alright, try 497. Put the old distributor in with the new cap, rotor button, and the thing that went underneath, this thing. The one that was all cracked up. Well, this is the one that was cracked up. Put that new one off the other alternator, or distributor in there. I'm going to hit the key, and fingers crossed. Let's see if this is the ticket. Huh. Alright, so I'm going to set you guys up here, and I'm just going to crank this and see if there's spark. Alright, well that is probably not a good sign because we have spark now. We didn't have spark before. We got spark back. Now it ran for a little bit. Now it doesn't run. Why? Why doesn't it run? I know we've got fuel. I can hear the fuel pump kicking on. I can smell gas whenever I crank it over. I messed something up somewhere. Somewhere along the line, something screwed up. I don't know what it is. Alright, I decided to go ahead and pull all 4 spark plugs, and I know that they're going to fall off as soon as I crank this, but I'm hoping to get to see some spark out of some of them. But I'm not 100% sure that maybe spark plug wires isn't part of my problem. I mean, that thing there just falls in and out. It may not even make good contact, so. Let's see. I could see 1 and 2 sparking from in there. Alright, well, I know I've got spark completely on all 4. So it is down to, I'm guessing this thing has either been terribly flooded, is why it won't start again, or it has jumped time, because I know I've got fuel and I've got spark and it ran, so I know I've got compression. It didn't blow up, or even if it did, it should still run on 3 cylinders. It just run really shitty. So it's got to either be that it was flooded or I've jumped time. That's my only 2 options. This thing has to run other than that. So I sprayed a little bit of brake cleaner down each one of these, and then took the air hose and blew a bunch of air in there, and you can smell the gas that is coming out of there. I mean, it's so thick in here, I'm feeling a little loopy. So this thing was severely flooded. I'm gonna let it dry out a little longer, and I'm gonna put the plugs in it, and we'll see what happens here. Alright, so I went ahead and stuck everything back together. The only thing I left off was the air filter, because it's pretty dirty. I don't think that could cause anything, but we're gonna crank it over and see what happens. So we still have nothing, and I completely cleaned out those cylinders, made sure there was nothing in them. They were dry, spark plugs were dry, put them back in. I know for a fact I'm getting fuel, I've clearly got air, and I've got spark. The only possible thing that it could be is timing now. So while I was at work today, I put a whole lot of thought into this, and I've come up with the conclusion that the original distributor I replaced this one with went bad because something was wrong internally. And whenever that had happened, I'd cranked it so much that I flooded the cylinders. Then, whenever I switched the other stuff back to this new distributor, I'm thinking I might have got it a tooth off on timing. And that's, even after I cleaned out these cylinders, that's why it still wouldn't fire. So what I'm going to do is probably pull all the spark plugs again and roll this engine around until I get it up on the compression on number 4 and get it to top dead center and time it to the number 4 wire and go from there and try it. I will also, I looked up online and figured out a test to test the throttle position sensor, make sure that it's doing alright, because my understanding on that is that tells the ECM how much fuel to feed the engine whenever you twist the butterfly in there, because it tells it how much air it's getting. So if that is bad too, that could be overloading the fuel with no air, which would be causing it to flood out and die. So that's where I'm headed next. So I had my daughter come up and crank the engine over for me, and I just stuck my finger down in the spark plug hole, and she just kept bumping it, and I got it to where it started to blow my finger up out of number 4. So that means it's coming up. So I'm just going to drop this long screwdriver down in. There's the top of the piston, and I'm just going to watch it. Whenever it comes up and stops, that's top dead center. Forgot to mention how I'm rolling this is I'm just going onto the alternator bolt here with the big wrench and twisting it. So I twisted that around until that screwdriver come up and was at the point where I was moving the wrench a little bit and the screwdriver was just hovering. It wasn't moving. So we're at top dead center. I'm going to pull that distributor cap off, and if it is in time, it should be pointing at number 4. But if it's not, then I know what my issue is. Oh, I feel like such an idiot. Don't know if you guys can see where that's pointing, but just let me put this in perspective. Number 1's here, and number 4 is right in here. So I'm way off, and I'm guessing that's my issue. The first original issue was the alternator, or distributor, but we're gonna retime this and put it back together. So we may have not been so much out of time as what I thought, because for some reason this stupid rotor button, which I thought would only go on one way, will go on multiple ways. And if you just turn it, because it was pointing up here, well, if you just turn it around that one click, that puts us where we're supposed to be pretty much. I mean, we might be slightly off, but if we are, it ain't by much. And yeah. So, that being said, I'm just going to stick the cap back on it. We're going to see if it'll fire right there. Alright, I got it put back together. My fingers are crossed. I am praying right now that my dumbassness is what caused this ending. So, oh, please, Lord, let this thing start. Huh. I think my battery's getting a little low. Alright, so I got the battery charger on it on boost. Let's try this one more time. Oh, come on. Well, that was closer than what I've had lately. Something still ain't right. So I think I finally got it nailed down. And I was correct. This rotor button will only go on here one way. It will not fit the other ways. Absolutely will not. So that means that I am still out of time, I guess, on this distributor. And I mean, theoretically, you should have been able to just move the rotor button and it would have worked. But anyhow, I'm probably going to have to roll this around until it top dead center on number 4 again and make sure this is pointing in the right direction. Now, I can't grant you that I'm on compression stroke because I'm here by myself right this second, but that's pretty well pointing at number 4, and that screwdriver is way down there. So, I gotta get somebody to help me. Alright, I got it on top dead center compression, and look where that's pointing. That should be pointing down here, not up here. So, I'm going to pop that out and re-stick it. Hopefully this is it, people. Let's try her. Alright, that's where she should be pointed. I'm going to stick that plug in there. We're going to try to find out. Alright. Come on, be good to me. Let's try this one more time. Yes! Yeah, she runs! Oh, man. So, all in all, I'm still a firm 100% believer that this right here was my entire problem. I had to buy a $100 cheap alternator to get that. So, basically the moral of this story is, 1, don't put your hand in there and crack your alternator. 2, distributor, don't put your hand in there and crack your distributor. Number 2, if you do, don't be a cheap ass like me and buy the $100 cheap one on eBay because it failed. What we got smoking? Oh, it's the oil. It's running, and it actually sounds healthy. Alright guys, I'm excited. The Geo runs again. And part of it, most of it was my stupidity. But moral of the story, don't buy the cheap Chinese parts to try to save a little money. Get something a little bit better. But if you guys like videos like this, go check out the rest of my channel. I do weekly video drops. And thanks for watching.